Welcome to this webinar on Infraworks, taking the next step. In this session, I'll be talking about sharing your projects. This is following on from the beginner's guide to Infraworks, working with libraries, getting quantities out that I've been doing over the last 3 weeks. Right, so my name's Ian Robinson. I'm the infrastructure consultant here at Graitec. I've been doing this for over 18 years now. My main role is training, consulting, presenting, and generally evangelizing geospatial, civil engineering and BIM software. So that includes, in the Autodesk side of things, AutoCAD Map 3D, Civil 3D, Infraworks, vehicle tracking, recap, point clouds, recap for your point clouds, and Navisworks for things like clash detection. I work for Graitec, and there are 4 pillars to what we do here at Graitec. We create, simulate, fabricate, and manage. We work with the Autodesk portfolio and our own Power Pack enhancements to aid the creation of construction and manufacturing deliverables. And then we go on to our own products with the Simulate. And we use these Simulate products to basically verify these deliverables, and that drives us into our own fabrication products, where we can process and manage the deliverables there, and then through to our CDE products for internal and external platforms. Okay. If you've not seen it before and you're interested in the BIM workflow, make sure you take a look at the OpenTree webinars that we have running on here. So speaking of webinars, up and coming webinars, so this whole range that we've done in this series are on the demand portal now. There's a link there at the bottom to show you where go to the events for all the future ones. And the next ones that I've got planned at the moment is working with multiple surfaces, which will be later this week, isn't it? Friday. Not keen on this Monday slot. I think I preferred the Friday slot. So we're back to Friday this week for that one. Then I'm moving into AutoCAD. Again, continuing with this new for some. Anybody who's using AutoCAD can use AutoCAD Map 3D, and it looks just like AutoCAD. I'm going to do a presentation on that. And then the next new feature is collaboration for Civil 3D, which has been added. And those of you that use collaboration for Revit in BIM 360 will know what that means. And we've now got that open to us using Civil 3D. So I'll be showing you that as well. The on-demand portal, you can go to there. That is a link, by the way, Graitec On Demand, and I've put it in the handout area of the application, so you can download a PDF of this presentation, click on the links, and it'll take you straight there to the on-demand page. I did notice when I was in there that all of these are in Civil 3D area. So if you click on the Civil 3D area, you'll see these Infraworks one in there. Maybe we should have put a separate one for Infraworks, but we didn't. We are where we are. While you're at our webpage, though, you can also subscribe to our blogs. Now, at the moment, the last few months, we've been concentrating on doing webinars and online training and things like that. So I haven't done any blogs over the last couple of months, but certainly you'll see blogs up until then, and then hopefully we'll get back onto them very, very shortly. And in line with all the other ones, we're going to do the poll again. And I noticed there's a few people that have been here before. Don't worry if you've filled this in before and you can't be bothered to do it again. That's fine, but I will run this poll. It's for everybody, I guess. So are you, let me launch it. Come on, Ian, you can do it. There we are. Are you currently furloughed? Just a simple yes or no. Last week, everybody was not furloughed, which is great to see. And it looks like this week is the same. Oh, no, we've got a couple of furloughs. Right, okay. That's fabulous to see. I'll just share that with you. So that's great to see people who are furloughed who are keeping up to speed with the latest technologies or keeping their hand in. And you guys will be the ones that will make the difference when we all come out of this, I think. Right, let's launch the next one. So for those of you that are not furloughed, are you back in the office, working from home, or are you on site? Click all that apply. So if you're doing a little bit of everything, click them all. If you're just working in the office, click in the office, or just working at home, click at home, but whichever, one or all. And so everybody's working at home a little bit. I'll close that vote in a second if you've all got your votes in. I'll share it with you. everybody's working at home, but some of you are spending a bit of time in the office and some of you are spending a bit of time on site, which is to be expected. And I think that's great to see as well. I think that's going to be I hate this term, the new normal, but it looks like we're all going to be working at home a little bit more. I've worked at home, some of you already know this, for the last 10 years, so it's not new to me. Just two more. Do you have the AEC collection, AutoCAD, Map 3D or Civil 3D? Tick all that apply, but if you've got the AEC collection, just tick that because it means you've got everything else as well. Yeah, it is a lot better, Kieran, isn't it? Yeah, I agree totally. Right, okay, so I'll close that vote. The same number of votes have come in, so let's close that. And I'll share that with you. So again, this is in line with most people have gone down the AEC collection route. I noticed some of you have got AutoCAD. If you have got AutoCAD, make sure you download AutoCAD Map 3D. I'll show you a little trick today with Map 3D as well. So if you're using AutoCAD, don't bother. Just download Map 3D. It is AutoCAD. It's got all your AutoCAD tools. It even looks like AutoCAD, but it's got some cool geospatial tools in there. Okay, brilliant. Let's hide that one. And the very final one, are you currently using Infraworks? So yes, I'm using it all of the time, or maybe you're just using it some of the time, or you've got it because you've got the AEC collection, but you've never used it yet. What I'm seeing here is that we started off with a few people saying I've never used it, and that's getting less and less over time, which is great. So hopefully these webinars are helping you kind of get an idea of how this product is going to help you. Okay, about the same number of people have voted, so I will close that and share it with you. And there you go. You can see that the majority of you using it some of the time. And again, I think that's to be expected. It's not useful for every project, but it is useful for a lot of things. And sometimes I actually use it just as a data manager. So I just chuck a lot of data in it, and then I can push that through to Civil 3D quite nicely as well, which is quite good. Okay, let's close that one and move on. Thank you for that, everybody. So the agenda today, I'll just do a very brief recap. We're going to run out, I'll keep running out of time, don't I? So it's going to be a very brief recap of what we've done so far, just to get you in the right mind space. For those of you that haven't seen the previous webinars on the subject of what is Infraworks, the libraries and quantities, they are on the on-demand portal, so go and see them. So today we're going to be sharing our project. And I've kind of split it into three main areas. Sharing locally with your colleagues, or sharing with collaborators, so the wider area, or sharing all the way to the public. So I'll try and keep within that kind of theme as we go, but yeah, let's just go with it. So to the recap, what is Infraworks? Well, it's primarily a conceptual design tool. It's a place to build ideas and try things out, if you like. It's a box full of content that will allow you to build your virtual world. And on that digital world, you can design new stuff such as landform, footpaths, roads, cycle paths, drainage, bridges, tunnels, all the stuff that we've done in the previous webinars. But the best bit is you can use this model when you move into your design phase. So everything you do here is reusable. And I'll be showing you some of them share options with other software as well. You'll see that today. Secondly, it's a collaboration tool. It's a place where you can bring together things like Revit files, AutoCAD files, SketchUp, it doesn't have to be Autodesk, Inventor, 3ds Max models. You can bring your GIS data in and do constraint checking like flood data or SSSI data, or are there any crested newts nearby, that sort of stuff. You can bring all these things in and it'll position them automatically if they're all georeferenced. Or if it's not, like a Revit model and you haven't referenced it, then you can just position it manually yourself. This doesn't make it a replacement for Navisworks though. So Navisworks is still the tool to use for doing things like clash detection and for your federated models, your BIM models, because you can get you've got more control over the output of the data within there. Technically, that's not true, but certainly it's easier to get the data out that way. But for early stage design, this is a great place just to chuck all your stuff together and do some looking up. And thirdly, it's a presentation tool as well. And again, it's not a replacement for 3ds Max. You won't get super duper photorealistic images. You won't get fabulous videos that look realistic with people walking up and down them. But at any stage of the design, you can quickly get out images, videos, you can share it even on the internet. The model itself can be stored locally or on your hard drive, or it can be stored on the server. So it could be stored in your server so that everybody's got access to it in your business, or it can be stored in the cloud using BIM 360. And because I'll be talking about sharing, we will be looking at how that's managed as well. You can control access to the model to specific people or teams or even companies if you are using BIM 360, which is really useful. And you can even share it on the web. So that means anybody with a URL that you produce can view the model on any device without any Autodesk software or any Autodesk licenses. Now, I've mentioned the word GIS, and getting the data in to start with, or finding that level of data that you need. I've already done, I did a class in last year's Graitec BIM Up conference, digital conference. If you attended that, great. But I also repeated this as a webinar, and that's a link directly to the webinar called the GIS BIM Conundrum, a beginner's guide to digital data. So if you're new to working with geospatial data, go and see that one, and you'll find that really useful. Well, I hope you will. So last time, or the time before last, I covered libraries, and hopefully that gave you enough insight into the workings of Infraworks to really get the most out of it. And basically, libraries are a way of organizing your stuff. You can add whatever you want into a library, and you can save it for future use. And then the last one I did was quantities, and I looked at getting quantities out of a road, a bridge, a tunnel, a bit of landform and stuff like that. Just to remind you, that's what we did. I drew that bridge across here, and we got quantities out of that bridge over here. We got some areas and quantities out of the land. We did a little bit of measuring and stuff like that. And we also got some spreadsheets out, didn't we, at the end as well. So now you know what Infraworks is, and we can get some data in, we can analyze it, we can do some constraint checking, we can then do some preliminary design and get some rudimentary quantities out of it. You now want to share your project to the relevant people. So that's the plan today. We're going to be looking at many ways to get data out and share your data with as many people as possible. And this will be in the way of sharing files. So taking files out of Infraworks and putting them into other software packages to enable the design stage of the project. Some of these files are two-way as well. So you can take it out of Infraworks, put it into Revit, mess about with Revit, put it back into Infraworks and link the two together. Same with civil models. You can just right-click, re-import, and it will go and find the original model, re-import it if there's been any changes in the original model, which is quite useful as well. Now remember, you can store your model on a server or in the cloud, and this opens you up to the BIM 360 collaboration tools. Anyone with access to the project will see your model. They can either see it using Infraworks if it's just on your server, or you can see it in a browser if it's in BIM 360, or indeed Infraworks as well. You've got an option on that one. Basically, anyone can install Infraworks. Okay, if you don't have a license, you will have a read-only version. So you can create the model on a licensed version, and it's stored in on your server, and then your mate or your boss can have Infraworks installed. Go to the server and open up that Infraworks. He can't edit it, but he can view it, he can measure, he can do all the things that we've been looking at earlier. You just can't create stuff in it. So that's really useful. When using the, that's the working on the model, and you can also share on the web as well. So anybody can have access to this model. And again, if you're using BIM 360, I'll show you where that's stored and how to work with that. But also you can send it out to the public. You can take a section of your model, or the entire model indeed, although you've got to be careful with memory, particularly with some devices. But yeah. And finally, we're going to create images and videos as well. Okay. The videos can be created in a thing called storyboard. You can do flyovers, you can do drives on roads, you can do sun analysis, you can have a look around or crane up with cameras and import camera paths and all sorts of stuff. Just like the video I'm showing here, that's just a flyover at the moment. And this is what we've been working on. If you haven't been working with us on the previous webinars, if you haven't been watching them, that's the Revit model there of our site. And then we're just doing a look around or a fly around, and then we can come up and go into the building and have a look around in the building. And that took me all of 20 minutes to do, something like that. Now, when it comes to the images, if I just click on this image here, or in fact, I'll tell you what, let's just cancel. I'll show you these images here. With the images, so this is our model. Let's just go and find them images. There we are. You can output really high resolution images. So if you look at this, this is a 2.8 megapixel image. And if I was to zoom in, you'll see it gets a bit blurry as you'd expect. It's not the greatest quality image, but I've outputted this from Infraworks at 526 megapixels. Now, what happens if I zoom in here? A lot better. You can output really high resolution images. So I'll show you how we can do that as well. Okay, so that's pretty impressive actually. It means I can take one image and I can go and get lots of different snapshots from that image. Right, okay, let me get my notes up. First things first, where you store your model will change potentially how you would save the model. And if you recall, when we first created a model, if I just go in and do a new one, it says, do you want to share it collaboratively or work local? And that work local can be anywhere that you've got access to on your server. It can be any of your drives on your server. So it could be a shared drive on your server. Or you can work collaboratively. And if I click on collaboratively, you'll see it goes to my BIM project folders. I did a webinar on BIM 360, and we've also got our guy Grant, who's done lots of webinars on BIM 360. But just to give you a very, very whistle-stop tour, this is BIM 360. So this is your collaboration tools. And if you have access to this, then it's a great place to store your models because, firstly, they're all backed up. Brilliant. If anything goes wrong, you've got a backup. Also, it stores versions. So when you change it and refresh it, it keeps the old version and then creates a new version. So you'll have versioning as well. So you can always go back, which is really useful. And for those of you that are account admins, this is where you create your new projects. And you'll see I've got one here called Glen Ridding, which is where we're working, Glen Ridding site. And within that project, I've been signed out. Let me just sign back in. It's always good fun when you do live presentations. It knocks you out after a set period of time just to stop it being open too long. Glen Ridding site, here we are. You can assign people, so you can have members to it, or it can be a company which has people in it. You can also tell it what services you would like as well, which I'm regretting putting on now because it's going to have to connect to the services module, so just give us a sec. There we are. And all you need for Infraworks is document management. You don't need any of the other stuff. That's for other parts of the project. All we're using this for is storing the model so that we've got multiple access to it. And on the profile, you can put things like that image at the beginning, and that's the image of my model and how much the project is. The only other thing that's important is that you make sure you put the right time zone in because it sends emails out based on these time zones. Now, when you've been added to a project, you will get an email. Here it is. Welcome to the Glen Ridding site project. and you can link straight to it, sign in, you've got access. Job's a good one. Once you go into project, so here's a folder. This is a project folder we've just called Graitec Infraworks, and it's just a place that we dump all our Infraworks models. And I can go and I can pick any of the old models in here, and I can view them. Now, what I've done here is I've document management was fine. Yeah, I don't need that. I can view our model directly in the web browser. So this is our Glen Ridding one. So all I did was I went found it in here, because I put it in here actually. I hadn't put it in there. There it is, Glen Ridding. Click on that and it'll open this up. The reason why I've done it previous, because this is a really big model. If it's a small model, like just a bridge, which I'll be showing you later, it'll take seconds to load. A big model probably take about 2 or 3 minutes, and you get a bit bored while I'm humming and waiting. And this is a really big model, but look, it's a proper 3D model. So anybody that's got access to your project can view the model. They can also do markup. Okay, we can choose which proposal we want. But let's say I was just going to do a bit of markup. I think that's where we put our building plot, isn't it? You can just go in and we can add some markup, we can add some text, and we can do all that sort of stuff. I need a plot or whatever, etc. So we can add markup, we can save it, and that's all viewable and turn on off and onable. We can do sectioning, we can measure as well. So if I wanted to measure how far it is to the water's edge, it's 150 meters. Really useful things for managing the project and for being able to share collaboratively. So remember, that's anybody who has got access to BIM 360 and is in that project. So that will be your collaborators and your colleagues, usually. That's normally the case. There is also an Autodesk online free viewer. We'll come back to that one in a second. Okay, so let's go to Infraworks now, and we'll come back to the model in a second. So here's my project. Now, before I start sharing this out, there's a couple of things I need to consider. First thing is, watch these trees. As I zoom in, can you see they get denser? See how dense they are at this level? When I start zooming out, you'll see they start thinning out. It's a way of protecting your hardware. Because if I was to show all of them trees all of the time, when I'm looking at this level, do I need them all on? The answer is no. Similarly, on our site, the fence has disappeared. If I zoom in slowly, you'll see the fence suddenly appear. Oh, it's appeared now. You see that there? When I zoom out, the fence disappears. Well, I might have left that one on. So all of these elements, if I'm going to be sharing the model, I could do with probably turning these on. And to turn them on fully, this is to do with level of detail. We can go into the model. Sorry, this here is the Model Explorer. And it's this switch here. This switches the level of detail on or off. So let's just zoom out so you can see the trees here. They're a little bit thinned out. Let's go and find trees. There they are. And if I click on that, you'll see little, looks like windows appear on the building. And you'll see the trees all start rendering up. See that it thickened them up? Click on it again, and half of them disappear. And it's basically to do with proximity. The closer I get, the more trees they are. The further out, the less trees they are. If I turn that on, they're on all the time. So remember, if you've got a weak computer with a weak graphics card, that's the point it's going to start to fall over if you're going to be doing this. So bear that in mind. Similarly, if this model is really, really big and you want to load it into a web browser like that, you've got to consider that has to load that into the memory of the web browser. So really big models it will struggle with. And in fact, if I was to switch that to one of my designs, it would probably take 5 minutes, and I'd need to make sure I've got enough memory. Some people I've noticed will get a fail. And it's when they've run out of memory because they're using a computer that's designed for word processing. So just bear that in mind. So if I was to turn a few things on, so I'd turn on points of interest, I'd put the barriers on, Buildings, yeah, make sure the buildings all appear at full res. So this building, because I left that in buildings, didn't I? That will always stay at high res, which is good, or a good LOD, and I'll put the trees on as well. Okay, so it will be a bit slower, but that's what that is. So now let's have a look at shared views. Now, shared views are here, and that is something you can share to anybody. So it doesn't matter where it's stored, doesn't matter if it's sat on your C drive and you're not sharing the model with anybody, we can do a shared view. It's this button here, click on it. And you'll see I've already created a couple here. I've done this one here of this bridge here. Note, it says expires in 28 days. These are stored online, free of charge. Nobody needs a license, apart from you to make it, for 30 days. But you can go in here and extend it. And if I click extend, it'll go back to 30 days. So I can keep extending it if I need to. But yeah, they're all on there. And we can also from here view it in the browser, just copy the link and send it to somebody on an email or delete it. To create one, we can add comments as well. To create one, I'll just do a new shared view. Okay, and I'll just call this one new site 1. I would never recommend doing a model this size. If somebody tried to open that up on an Apple 6 iPhone or an Android with half a gig of memory in it, it's not going to work. So what we can do is we can either define a box, a rectangle, or a polygon. I'll just do a rectangle, and I'll just say I will share that. Double click. We can also set the image here. So set the home position, which is the position the user will get to. So set home position. So I'll say I'll have them start here and hit enter. And that's where they will start. And we can share bookmarks and properties. I'll come back to bookmarks in a minute. Hit share. Now that will take quite a few minutes to do. So I'm going to cancel it because you don't want to watch it sit there chunking away for a couple of minutes. And we're going to go to one. Here's one I made earlier. So let's go to my browser, and there it is. This is of the bridge, that iron bridge that I did. Okay. Now the beauty is here, you do not need a license. If I open this up in here, you'll see I'm not licensed. It says sign in. Look, sign up for free. So if you don't have a license, you can still view it in here. So you can send this to anybody. And there it is. Okay. I'll stick with this one now. What you can do in here, there's a couple of things that are useful, like settings. So you can turn things on and off. Like ghost hidden objects is quite nice. So I can turn things off and it'll ghost them rather than switching them on or off. I quite like that one. You've also your navigation. You can use the view cube in here, and you've also got reverse mouse zoom. Originally, I think this was designed for kind of mechanical users, so the zoom is different for mechanical users as it is for us. So that's quite useful, and you can adjust the sensitivity of the scroll speed because it is quite sensitive. On the appearance, again, it's just about quality, putting ground shadows in or not, that sort of thing. And then on the environment, you can choose what type of environment you put it in. Just flat shading. You've got it kind of black and white, etc., etc. Okay. I'll just leave it on that one. And then again, you've got lovely tools down here. So we've got things like we can put first person on, and it tells you how to do it, and it puts gravity on. And now I can use my mouse to walk around the site. And you'll see I'll go up the hill here. If I go down the hill, there we are. So we can navigate around in the first person. We can, did the wrong button. We can measure. You can see a couple of measurements I've already put on there. But if I wanted to measure across the original span, and there it is. Click done. And we can also, guess where I was at the weekend, do cross sections. So I do a section on the X and Y plane, and there's a cross section. So we can spin it around here, and we can move it up and down here. Right, so for example, we can have a nice look at a cross section of our bridge in here, and we can do markup as well. We can create basically a snapshot, and you can put some point clouds in and text and the usual things that we've been explaining, and then hit save, and it will save that markup, and then we can view that. And there it is. There's the markup in there, and I can say in here, I don't know, webbing to thin or whatever. Post. Okay, there's some I've done here previously as well, but there's our new markup in there. So that's quite good. For people who are not signed in, you can't do the markup. You've got to be signed in. So they can just have a free Autodesk license. They don't have to physically have an Infraworks license. They can just say, yes, sign up for a free Autodesk account, and then they can do that as well. We can also print and screenshot. And again, you have to be signed in for printing and stuff like that. So it's a really cool way of sharing your project. How are we doing for time? We're all right for time. Maybe I'm talking faster. Maybe I should slow down. I'm recording this so you can view it afterwards with slow voice. You sound very funny when it's a slow voice. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was getting images out. So I've already shown you the kind of results of getting images out. But let's say I wanted to just get an image there. And yes, that is a little green man there. As we said, we can put whatever we want in here. So we've got an alien. But let's say I want to get that image out here. Now, one top tip is set a bookmark. These bookmarks here. Okay. So I'm just going to call this one Office Entrance. And I'm doing a search, aren't I? I'm an idiot. Hang on. You do add bookmark Office Entrance. Okay. And it means I can get back to it at any point. There's that steel bridge, and I can go back to this at any point. So I've got a reference between that and the image, effectively. Now, to get an image, if I go to Present and Share, under Present, you'll see Create a Snapshot. And there it is. It defaults to your document all the time. I'm just going to stick it on the desktop because I'll delete this in a minute. Oh, why is my brain? Monday brain's on. Desktop, there it is. And I'll just call it Snapshot. I'm happy with that. And you can either use the viewport resolution, so whatever your viewport is, or you can actually set the resolution, and you can go up to about 565 megapixels, I think. So if I did that at 24,000 by 18,000, 24, some of you are really smart, I've already worked this out. That's 432 megapixels. It will take a minute, maybe to build it, but I'll not go that high. I'll just do it at 2000 by 1500. And if we go to my desktop, let me just find it for you. I can't see the word desktop for some reason. There it is. And there's my image. Okay, so we can just get images out, and it's just a normal JPEG image. You can paste it wherever you want and do whatever you want with it. You can actually, if I do create a snapshot, you'll see in here, it can be a PNG or a TIFF file as well, so you have them choices. So getting images out nice and easy. What about doing a little bit more? I'm doing a storyboard. Well, that's this thing here, Storyboard Creator and Storyboard Player. And I've already done a few, so you can see, here's one I did earlier. I did one called the Sun Analysis, and I did one called Site Option A, if I double click it. And I did one called Flyover, that's the video you just saw. at the beginning, this video here. Okay, that one there. So I'll just show you how to quickly create one. So if I'll just move this bar over so that I'm here. Okay, and I'm going to create a new storyboard. I'll give it a sensible name. New site. Oh, why didn't my keyboard work? New site. There we are. And all you do here is, this section here is adding the text that you saw on that video. Here you can add a title text and a caption. Basically, by default, a title text, although you can change any of them, has a solid background, and a caption has a hollow background, so it's just the words on there. But you can swap them around. This one here is all your different animations. So craning, looking around, orbiting, panning and zooming, walking, still motions, track animations, zoom animations, that sort of stuff. This one here is creating your camera path animations, or you can import it. Importing it's a bit annoying because it basically needs a load of points, and it creates a camera snap of each point. I would have preferred a line, you know, like in AutoCAD you can do it where it's a line and a camera follows a line. It's not like that. Or you can create it from a component road. So if I just do add a camera path animation, it takes this image, this is the first snap here. I can give the keyframe a sensible name. So I'll just call it start. And then I'm going to zoom in just with my mouse. And if I hit that little plus, it will link them two together. Okay, so if I hit play, started there and finishes there, and it links the two together. The thing to watch out for is the speed. Basically, it does a 3-second keyframe. So then if I go down to here and add that in, if I was keeping the speed, can you see how thin it is? And that's because it will be running at 2,500 kilometers per hour. So keep an eye on that. And I'm going to say, no, time to next keyframe. And I'm going to set it to 2 seconds. I should have done it on that one, 2 seconds. The one before, isn't it? Not that one. Okay, there we are. So now if I stop it and play it, it will zoom in and then it'll whiz to that point there. Okay. To add titles in, I can just click title at any point and it just adds it to the end, but you can drag it to wherever you want. I can move that over. I can drag the title in here and I'll just call this one. You just change the text in here. It says your title. Graitec Training Office in Cumbria. You can choose to fade it or just to cut it. We'll transition in. It's going to be at the start, so we'll just cut it in. But we'll fade it out over 1 second. So now watch what happens. Starts off. Oh, this red line is just because I've got it selected here. So if I unselect it. And then it will fade it as it's zooming, like so. Okay. The next thing I could do is I could move to a new place. So let's say I want to pick a component road. Is that a component road? It is. Okay, so I'm going to drive from here down this road here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll add a new frame in here. Now, if I use the little plus here, it's going to move the camera between the two, but I don't want to do that in this case. So I'm going to add another camera path, but this time I'm going to fade it from black. So it'll go black and then it'll fade it into this point here. Okay. So you can see as it does it, it will fade between them. So that's again really useful. The other ones you can do is you can add from a component road. So create from component road. So if I pick the component road, you just tell it your horizontal offset, -1, your vertical offset, 1.5, and then so that's what your camera position is. This is what your target position is. So if you want to look straight ahead, -1, and vertical offset, I'll go 1. And the best thing to do is hit preview, and it'll move the camera to that position. Okay, so if I did that to 0 and preview, we'll go to the middle of the road. See that? Preview. Okay, just click create. It's going to add them all from this point here. There they all are. So if I play it, it will, that's me, no hands on the wheel. I'm putting my hands in the air, showing you that I'm not doing anything. And that's me driving down the road. You can set that keyframe. It's a little jerky, but when you put it into a video, you can set the keyframe again on the video. But if you want it really smooth, set the keyframe quite low. But bear in mind, it's going to be big. You know, the bigger it is, the harder it'll be. Okay. And if I just, this little blue bar allows me to move it up and down so I can see where I'm at. I just wanted to show you one other thing. Well, I don't want to show you a couple of things. Okay. So if I just add in here a caption, let's move that over to there. Okay. And I'll just say approach. Okay. So now it will put the caption in, the approach. And you can have it as long as you want, basically. If I wanted that there for much longer, there it is, duration. Okay, so it's currently on 3 seconds. And you'll see it lengthening there. The container here allows me to position it and also add transparency to it and stuff like that. So if I wanted it center, it'll move it to the center of the image. Or if I want it top left, it'll move it to the top left. And you can choose how big it is and how far offset. So you can see in the Y it's offset 5. I'll move it a bit further in the corner. And then the container, we can set the scale of the container as well, so how big it is, etc. In there. I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, so once you have got your storyboard, you can play it in here, or we can close that down. And we have a storyboard player, there it is. And this allows me just to pick whichever storyboard I want, and I can just play it from wherever it is, or I can pause it, and I can use the slider to go back and forward, etc. Okay, let's go back into the storyboard creator now. Now, if I wanted that out as a video, you hit that button there. And you'll see the uncompressed video, or I can do Windows Media. That's my top tip. I know we don't like using proprietary, but I found that gives you the best results, but you decide. It's not so big as well, and that's where you can increase the frames per second. If you go above 30, it's going to take quite a while. I mean, I've done some really high resolution ones, and when you get to you leave it running overnight, you get to it in the morning, and you haven't got a player with enough memory to actually work it. And also you can set the resolution as well. If you're going to blow it up big, make that a big number. If it's going into a PowerPoint presentation, make it a smaller number. And if it's going online, make it even smaller. Okay, so we can do that. That sun analysis one was quite useful. I was going to quickly show you that just to give you a brief. I'll just whap it to the end of this one here. Go to the end of that road. Okay, so I'm over here now. So I will add a new camera path. And we'll look at it from above, just to show you how the sun analysis one works. So I'll just add a new camera path. We'll fade transition from black. Okay, and then after that, we'll go to the end of that, and then after that, we'll do some sun analysis here. And you've got a date and time animation. It's very simple. You can either do time of day, so one day, any day of the year, a fixed day and time, or any day of the year. So if I do time of day, I'll pick here which number of day in the year it is, up to 365. So if I want a day in, I did February on the video, so I'll say October, November, and I'll start it at 3 in the morning. And you can just type in here if you want exact numbers, and I'll finish 10 at night. Okay, hit play, and that's what the sun does on that day of the year. Or of course you can do day of the year. So I'll start at the beginning of the year, I'll finish at the end of the year, and then I'll choose a time. Let's see, so 9 o'clock's when we all get in the office. So what's the daylight like throughout the year at 9 o'clock? And there it is. So all of these ways of getting that out into presentation mode, brilliant. You've got web browsers, you've got videos, you've got images. It can be high res, low res, whatever you want. Okay, so next is about getting the data out. Oh, it does that now. When you shut that down, it leaves them on. If I scroll that over, just move that and then shut that down. Okay, next thing was about getting files out or getting data out, getting it into the design packages. But before we do that, I mentioned if you had AutoCAD, you could use AutoCAD Map 3D instead of AutoCAD. Now this is an SQLite database, and Map 3D can read SQLite. So here's one I did earlier. I've connected to this model live. So this is a live connection. I know the database is locked. When you open up a database, it locks it. So I can't edit it until I shut down the Infraworks model. But I could shut it down and edit it. And basically all you do is you go in and you connect to the SQLite database. And these are all the tables in that database. Things like water areas, roads. And I've added them all in here. And you'll see I've now got an AutoCAD drawing with the position of the Revit building in. That's the Revit building. Even got the position of the cars and the drainage, where the trees are, where the water area is. Now, what's really good about that is if you put your model into something like this, we can then do further constraint checking, can't we? So I've now done a connection, and again, if you want to learn about all this stuff, go and see my Beginner's Guide to Digital Data, or I will be demonstrating this in the webinar that I'm doing later on, maps. I'll show you at the end again where that is. I've just clicked my mouse by accident. Are you all still there? Yeah, you are. Good. Right. Okay. So yeah, what was I saying? Look, I've connected to, this is a connection directly to the Environment Agency, 1 in 1,000-year flood event. Now I know this flooded badly. So let's have a look at a 1 in 1,000-year flood event. There we are. That's what happened in 2015 when it flooded. Actually, that's the latest data, so that'll be the last flood event, or the maximum flood event. Well, it'd be more than that. It's modelled, isn't it? But yeah, so we can bring together even more data using Map 3D just by simply connect to data and connect to the SQLite database, and it's all in there. And as I said, and you'll see this in my webinar, it is, if I just go to 2D drafting, it is just AutoCAD. There you go, AutoCAD, but it's AutoCAD with bells and whistles. Right, next thing is some design stuff. Well, for here, what I want to do is I want to get this out into Civil 3D. I want the land data, I want this barrier here, I want the, you know, we set the levels, didn't we, of the car park? So I want, it will output a polyline of that car park, which I can then work on. it can output the roads as corridors as well. Or if it's a planning road, i.e. the GIS data that I imported right at the beginning, it will output that as an alignment into Civil 3D. But if it's a component road, it will output an alignment, a profile, and a corridor model, which is brilliant. The only stipulation for working with Civil is this database has to be shut down because it's locked at the moment. Doing that won't shut the database down. It's still open. If I click on it, it goes instantly into it because that database is open. The best way is to either shut down Infraworks entirely or just open up another model. Okay, but it's a database. Don't leave it running all the time. So it might be worth giving it a rest. But if I open up another model, it will free it up for me. It takes about 3-4 minutes. Again, I don't want you waiting for that. But to do it in here, just go to Infraworks tab in Civil 3D and go Open Model. Go and find the model. Now, if it's stored in the BIM 360 cloud, it will be in the folder that you've told it to put the cache in, the downloaded cache of the BIM 360 model. It caches it all for you, you see. And you just pick the SQLite file and open it. But of course, if it's downloaded onto your server, you just go and find the SQLite file from there. And once you've done that, you can choose what the objects look like when they come in. So what surfaces, what terrain, surface styles you put on it. For you non-Civil 3D users, this will all be double Dutch to you, but for Civil 3D users, you'll go, brilliant. And then you just click Open Model. Here's one I did earlier because it takes about 3 or 4 minutes, and this is what you get. So I get the existing ground surface. Do you remember where I got that from? If you were at the first webinar, What is Infraworks? I got that from the Environment Agency, remember? Right at the beginning. It's a really, really detailed model of the land. There it is. So I've got a 3D model of the existing ground. So that's really useful. I've also got a surface for all the design stuff that I did. So the car park and the roads and stuff like that as well. But in reality, if I was working in Civil, I'd probably switch that off and just work off the existing ground. I've got a corridor model of the road itself. There it is. That's the road we designed in Infraworks. I've also got profiles. I've put a profile in there, for example. So I had to place that in, but it actually brings the profile model in, and it brings the assemblies in as well. So that's the road. And remember, we just set the thickness. I didn't even bother putting a slope on it, but we could have done. We just set the thickness. So again, when it comes to design stage, all the bones are there for me to start modeling with it. And of course, I would then do a proper model, which I've done here. So that's my finished design, which I can then take back into Infraworks, interestingly enough. So we can take the model and put it into Civils for doing the groundworks and all the civil engineering. What about the structural stuff, the bridge? So if I go back to my Infraworks model, to get that bridge out, all I have to do is select the bridge. Wait till it says I've got a bridge. Right, bridge 1, there it is. So it's saying bridge 1. Right mouse click, and I publish the surface. So last time we did send to spreadsheets. That's how we got the data out with the quantities. But if you publish the surface, we can either create a new or update an existing. So if I do a change in here, after I've outputted it to Revit, I can then go and update the one in Revit, and it will automatically update it. But if I do create new, it will create a backup proposal, and you just tell it where you'd like to place it. Now, I'm not going to do it. Again, it'll take a few minutes. And I can do the same with tunnels as well. Did I keep the tunnel on here, or did I delete it? No, I kept the tunnel that I did just to show you that we can do tunnels. Oh, I changed the style of it. Yeah, I've changed the style of the tunnel, but the principle's the same. You pick your tunnel, right-click. Picked it too many times. Pick your tunnel, right-click, publish, create new, or update existing, and this is what you get. So this is directly in Revit. What it creates is a little IMX file, and you need to go into add-ins. There's a little add-in that you download with your if you go to your software download manager page, manage.autodesk.com, you can get this civil infrastructure importer, and this allows me to go and import that IMX file. Okay, so there it is, Bridge IMX. They are really big files. They are not small. Let me just show you how big the files are. So this is what you get. So there's the file. So that's the bridge, and that's the tunnel. It was a round tunnel, if you remember what I did, but I was messing with it the other day. You also get a JSON file. You get a little log file as well, which is just a little lump of text, just saying when it was done. Basically, that's all that's for. And yeah, we've got ourselves a Revit model with Revit elements. Next, what else have I done? I've done I did the tunnel as well. That's the tunnel we designed when we did it, and we've done the cross. I put the cross sections in and stuff like that. But yeah, so there's our tunnel into Revit. We can adjust the Revit models, and we can also take them back into Infraworks like we did earlier. We put a Revit model right at the beginning into there as well. And I think I talked quite fast there, didn't I? Sorry about that if you were keeping up. I think we're ready for questions, aren't we? So let's do that questions. So 5 and go to questions. Right. So if anybody has any questions, oh, you have. Excellent. Right. Just give me a second while I get them up. Okay, Kieran, you create a blank dummy Infraworks model for this purpose. Right, is the Revit importer tool available for 2018 platforms having major issues? Right, no, that was only, I'm going to say it arrived in 2019, but I will make a note, question myself, and if I'm wrong, but it is only for later versions. I don't think it was in 2018. So Revit importer. If it's anything different, I will let you know. Revit importer 2018. No. When we did it in earlier versions, when you outputted it, it tried to create families and do all that sort of stuff and output it. It doesn't do that anymore. Steve's asking topography to Revit. Yes. No. Sorry. No, it doesn't bring it in natively. There are things you can do. So we can take the surface out of Infraworks, put it into Civil 3D, and then you can either create an AutoCAD solid of that surface in Civil 3D and then link to that in Revit. That's option 1. Option 2, if you've got an earlier version of Revit, you can output the surface from Civil 3D as a land XML, but they've removed that option in later versions. Option 3 is if you've got BIM 360 docs, there is a tool which links a civil surface to a Revit surface. So again, we can take the model out of Infraworks into Civil, publish the surface to BIM 360, and then Revit can read that surface in BIM 360. Option 4 is we can output a CSV file from Civil 3D. So again, all these options require Civil 3D. We can output a CSV file, and Revit can read a CSV file. Here's your problem. The Revit algorithm smooths it. It doesn't do, if you were doing a design surface with jaggedy edges, Revit won't read that. Apparently, I've had mixed results on this. I think they've improved it recently. If you publish the surface, it is a more accurate representation, which is good. But the next problem is, if you remember, that surface that we got there probably has 1 million points in it. And if you put 1 million points into your Revit, bad things might happen. So there's lots to consider. And the answer is not really, but yes, you can. But you can go from Civil 3D to Revit. Yeah, Kieran's just confirming there that yeah, Yeah, that's the cynical. So Kieran's just saying they've removed the land XML, Autodesk removed the land XML to force users down the BIM 360 route. I'm not convinced that's entirely true. Land XML was a very old, clunky file, and if I made a surface in Land XML, it'd take about a surface of this size 4 hours maybe to produce. It was really old and clunky, and it's just not worth it. I think there would be a better way of doing it, but I get your cynical one. Taking a model. So when you're saying I'm thinking I can go from Civil 3D to Revit via Infraworks, Revit 2018, are you talking about the solid object, Kieran, if you can answer that? Or are you thinking about the surface still? Okay, right. Drain pipes. So pipes can go straight into Civil 3D from here, from Infraworks, and then yes, you can put them in. For the structures, if you put in a bridge into Civil 3D, it comes in as AutoCAD solids. So yes, you can bring them in, but they are AutoCAD solids. One option is a good option for you guys, Navisworks. Bung all the Infraworks stuff into Navisworks, and then you can link to Navisworks, can't you, in Revit as well? So that's another option. I think the biggest problem is people who use Revit tend to want to use it for everything. And we can't do that because Revit doesn't work on the British National Grid. It doesn't work with the size of data sets that we work with. It's designed for a different function than the civil engineering side of things. So we do have to be careful with that. One other option I didn't mention, and I will just talk to you. I was meant to be doing Q&A, wasn't I? In Infraworks. If you do have troubles with the output, any trouble with the output, in the share option here, you can export the 3D model, and that will export as an FBX file. Okay, so FBX can be used in Navisworks, so we can take the surface, the barriers, the trees, the buildings, all of these kind of things, structural things like that, and they can go into Navisworks that way. If you want to go into Civil 3D, then you do it as an IMX file, and Civil can read the IMX file. So if you do have any trouble, just output an IMX file and then bang that into Civil 3D, and that would work as well. So there are, I didn't actually get to them. The other two are File Geodatabase, that stands for, so that's for an Esri server. So if you've got Esri GIS server, Stephen, yeah, you've got an Esri GIS server. So we can export to an FGDB, so File Geodatabase, and we can also publish to ArcSDE. All right, so that's quite useful. I haven't shown them in here, run out of time, fundamentally. And also, very few of you have got ArcSDE, so bear that in mind. They have improved it in the later version. It's now got the ability to publish, not only just link, so in the earlier versions it was linking to Esri. Now it also publishes to Esri, so you can go both ways on that, which is quite useful as well. So they're the only other two that I didn't really show. Well, I didn't show at all, did I? Oh, by the way, this button here, while I'm in here, that just takes you to your BIM 360 account. And if I do any changes in here, that refresh button will sync it back up to the BIM 360 account. Again, I didn't mention that. Oh my God, it's 5 past. Right, sorry, let's move on. Thanks for all your questions, really useful. I hope that was useful. Remember, same rules are applying at the moment while we're all kind of working from home. Please use support, not just if you've broken something, if you just need a little bit of help. We can't train over the support platform, but we can give you quick answers to problems that you may have had that maybe we would consider training normally. We would happily still continue doing that. So yeah, any problems, just use support. If you've got it with Graitec, obviously use it through ourselves. It's very weird times at the moment. We're getting back to normal slowly, I think. And that's it. Thanks very much for attending. I really hope that was useful. I'll leave up the webinars. I mentioned the mapping stuff when I was showing the AutoCAD Map 3D. If you're an AutoCAD user, you can use that. That's in there. So there it is, working with maps in AutoCAD. It's basically Map 3D. So I'll leave that up for 5 minutes or so, and thanks again, and hopefully see you on Friday.